Let's go! Ooh, it's a hot mailbag from some juicy content this week. And look, some of you liked the hire, some of you didn't like the Brad Davis hire. And of course, on top of that, we're actually going to do a little bit of offensive line film study and see what needs to get fixed. We're also going to take a look at the past and what's going to happen in the future and all that good stuff. And obviously a friendly reminder, Sunday night will be our next live stream. Let's go! Alrighty, let's start off with JP, who is not thrilled by the Brad Davis hire, not liking it at all. Every big school he was at, he was only there for 1 year. That is a huge red flag with a red flag emoji. If he was so good, he would have been held and not let go. We could have got something more. Mawai was a Pro Bowl lineman. Every big school he was at, he was only there for a year. That's not true. He was at Mizzou for 2 seasons. And then he came over after Odom got fired, where Sam Pittman hired both Odom, the head coach from Mizzou, to be the defensive coordinator at Arkansas. And Pittman obviously had a really close relationship with Brad Davis, and Brad gets the job at Arkansas. And then, of course, Brad Davis before that was at schools like Florida and so on and so on. So, yes, he spent only 1 year at Arkansas, 2 years at Mizzou, and 1 year at Florida. Well, he was there at the end of the Jim McElwain era, which is why he was only there for a year. Then he goes to Missouri, where he spent 2 seasons, and then, of course, Arkansas, and now he's here. So, the thing you have to understand, JP, is that assistant coaches bounce around a lot. Just coaches in general bounce around a lot. And that's not only at the college level, that is at all levels, high school, and even the NFL. Coaches bounce around. It's a very difficult and transient profession. So I wouldn't take too much stock into it. I offered a better opportunity to go to Arkansas. Heck, he was making north of $500,000 at Arkansas, which was probably a pay raise from what he got at Missouri. So Kedrick brings up a good point here. Thanks, Carter, for releasing this video. I wonder why now they might be trying to get a better line for Myles. So, here's the thing. If you are a Myles Brennan believer and you want him to be the starting quarterback, could be the biggest winner of the Brad Davis hire, because the James Cregg offensive line could not protect Myles Brennan. And this is where it's going to get a little bit of technical, and a lot of you have talked about this since we've talked about this on this channel. So let's take the 2019 offensive line, for instance. That unit was really good. It's fine if you're really good, but that 2019 unit was not as good as my 2 favorite offensive lines. The 2011 offensive line and the 2007 offensive lines, to me, are the 2 best LSU offensive lines of the modern era. And once again, they didn't have a lot of really successful pros or anything like that, but those units were really smart. They worked really well together, and they really, on top of everything, made, particularly the 2007 offensive line, they were really, really good at communicating. And you could see it just by watching the tape. And then if you go back and watch, let's say, the 2020 offensive line, there wasn't the same communication. There were wide open blitzers running from different directions. And the thing is, the 2019 offensive line had those same issues. It just wasn't as bad because the unit was better, but they did have a lot of missed blitzers. And here's the thing. When you run empty and you run out of shotgun and you run an offense like that, and it does open you up to free blitzers coming off the edge, which is really tough to pick up. The problem, though, was the 2019 group had some periods where they just could not pick it up. The thing was, it didn't matter because they had Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow, of course, is just absolutely incredible. And obviously, I've said, I'll say it 1,000 times, and I'll say it 1,000 times over. Joe Burrow's best attribute could have been his very underrated mobility. And it wasn't just scrambles, and he only had like 360 yards running. It was just the ability to avoid big sacks or throw the football right before he was going to get clobbered. His mastery of the game, the mental, the physical, all of it, really made that 2019 unit look probably a lot better than it actually was. So you get to 2020, you have the same offensive line coach, and you have a brand new group of offensive linemen outside of Austin Deculus. Well, what happens? Well, that unit was not as good as the 2019 unit, and they were missing a lot of blitzes. Max Johnson is just slightly better because of his mobility behind bad protection. So if you're a Myles Brennan fan, we've done film studies on this, including one play from the 2-yard line against Mississippi State that would have given LSU the lead. We missed a simple, and it was a very simple A-gap blitz, and if we would have picked it up, we would have scored a touchdown. So if you are a Myles Brennan fan, and you believe he's going to be the starter, this is obviously a big-time hire for Ed Orgeron. And I understand. I've gotten this comment a lot. The timing isn't great. The timing isn't great. Well, guess what? When people get fired, the timing isn't always going to be great. When bad things happen, when you have to make drastic changes in your life, the timing isn't going to be absolutely perfect. Not everything is going to be decided like right after the season where Bo Pelini was fired. Scott Linehan was fired. Well, guess what? That's a lot of buyout money that you're having to hand out. And I don't know why this decision to fire Cregg happened now. I don't know what the buyout is going to be, which is going to be very fascinating. But the problem was the offensive line was so bad in 2020. The offensive line was even worse, arguably, in the spring game. That showed regression. That unit needed some new blood. And Brad Davis is a massive, massive, massive upgrade. Some of that is by default, but ultimately this was the right decision. And if you're a Myles Brennan fan, this obviously is something that should excite you because right now, I have Max Johnson as my QB1 because of the offensive line struggles. A lot has changed, including our quarterback deep dive into high school statistics and LSU quarterback success. It's floating in the top right corner of your screen if you want to watch that. That study changed my mind a little bit to picking Myles over Max, and this could be the thing that makes me say, okay, let's give Myles a shot because now he's going to have better protection. But we'll see how everything develops, and as always, Kedrick, thank you so much. Where is this taken, Kedrick? I mean, you got the city lights gleaming on you, the glow. I love it. Here's Ryan Hirschberger. You'll be replacing your head coach soon. He got lucky to have Joe Burrow, which is one of the most amazing QBs I've ever seen play. Ed is one and done. Go Dogs. Okay. First thing. If you're judging your program based on national championships and calling that one and done, well, there are a lot of all-time great coaches who have never won national championships. And number two, if you're a Georgia fan, you shouldn't be commenting on anyone only winning one national championship when you have won goose egg. So it's a little ironic that a Georgia fan brings this up. Also, to say Ed Orgeron is one and done is to say that only the 2019 team was good. No, the 2018 team, while they didn't win a national championship or go to an absolutely huge bowl, that was a really solid team in 2018 with Joe Burrow and obviously Nicholas Brissett and that crew. That was a really good defense. Garrett Brumfield was on that offensive line. And look, that was a solid team. It wasn't as if they were just mediocre like they were in 2020. So, yes, obviously last season was not good. Obviously, Ed Orgeron's got a lot to fix. But I believe in him. I do with the new hires and all of that. So, we'll see what Coach O can get done moving forward. This is good from Zachary. Bro, James Cregg, gone. I know you're on it already. Yes, but here's the thing. Whenever a breaking news story happens, I got all kinds of LSU alerts on my phone. Feel free, guys, to write something in the comments section or send me a message on Twitter or whatever, because I like to know. I like to know your thoughts on things like this. So Zachary made this decision while I was actually cutting up the James Cregg video. But yeah, feel free to hit me up anytime, for real. Good question here from Ray on 2022 wide receiver Landon. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Ibieta. an under-the-radar wide receiver in the state of Louisiana. He is a Louisiana bootlegger for the class of 2022. But to me, the most important wide receiver LSU needs to get is Shaz Preston. And I think that should be your first line of communication, is getting Shaz Preston to LSU. Yes, LSU already has three wide receivers committed. Yes, they took 5 wide receivers in the last class. What we've done, or what we've shown you on our study whenever we discussed this new crop of freshman wide receivers, there should be a premium put on top 100 wide receivers in the state of Louisiana, and Shaz Preston is a top 100 wide receiver in the state of Louisiana. One of those guys won a Heisman Trophy last season, albeit not for LSU, but there is a strong correlation there. Based on what I've seen so far, I think Aaron Anderson is going to be the best wide receiver in this class. I mean, he really jumps off the page, but Shaz Preston's really good as well. And this was Dee Jay. When we did our Covantre Bradford transfer piece, Dee Jay sent this comment in, and, it was quite prophetic, because just a few hours later, the James Cregg firing happened, which, of course, just came out of left field. And here's Complex 504. We're going to have the same issue at the wide receiver position. The room is too loaded with playmakers, and I wouldn't be surprised that over the next 2 years we lose 2 or 3 at the position. Yeah, it's just going to happen. It really is. Especially considering Coy and Kayshawn are going to be here at least 2 more seasons. Those 2, and then, there's only going to be 1 or 2 other receivers that are really going to get targets. Potentially 3, potentially 4 more wide receivers. And you're about 8 or 9 deep at the position right now. So, and that doesn't include the new guys coming in from 2022. So, Complex is saying this based on Covantre Bradford's transferring at the running back position where it's really deep. So now if you're LSU, how many running backs do you really need in these next couple of classes? And how many wide receivers do you really need in these next couple of classes? So that's going to be a very interesting roster management decision moving forward. But thanks as always, Complex 504, and thank you for serving our country. So in our AG2 video, we did not mention him by name. And what I'll say is it wasn't because of anything that has to do with AG2. It was more because we've had to do so much content regarding this roller coaster of a story. Did this Voldemort joke, and I didn't know what the heck it meant. And I knew it was a Harry Potter character. I just didn't know that you couldn't say his name or whatever. And I get the joke now. Never really gotten a Harry Potter, though. So, anyway. I love outside the box comments such as this one from CB. Nice doing business with you, Georgia. I have no problem with us trading a tight end for a safety. Very interesting. And it wasn't like a trade in the sense that you would see in a professional sports league, but it is essentially what happened. We pick up Major Burns and they pick up AG2. And because it was just passed by the Southeastern Conference, players will be immediately eligible to play with an in-conference transfer. Now, this just broke. I'm going to be interested to see if there's going to be any loopholes or stipulations as far as blocking kids from going place to place. And a lot of you have had comments regarding how you don't like it. You believe only juniors and seniors should be able to transfer, and you got to wait till you graduated and whatnot. Because obviously, like in the case of Joe Burrow, when he transferred from Ohio State because he was a graduate, he was immediately eligible. And in the past, there have been loopholes anyway with this rule, because take Justin Fields from Georgia to Ohio State, there's always exceptions to the rule. But now we are in a state where you could transfer from place to place. So the college game is it's legit going to have, to me, the biggest shift from this season to the next as far as the recruiting cycle is concerned. So let's actually break this down. So Brooks Coblena had a good piece about this in The Advocate. The Athletic has done some really good stuff as far as giving you insight as to how this opening month of June, or these first couple of days here, has changed the recruiting landscape, where visits. These are the first times we have seen in-person visits in quite some time. And it was encouraging, especially with the transition that Ed Orgeron was meeting with Will Campbell and so on and so on. So it is pretty cool to see all of this, right? And obviously LSU is just on top of it. This is what Ed Orgeron does best by far, is recruiting and the relationship aspect of this business. But now, with this being the case, look, LSU might have just picked up even just a walk-on here in Pig Cage that could actually play a lot next season on defense. It is interesting what a scholarship is actually going to mean moving forward. It has changed so much just in the past 5 years alone. It's wild. And we're going to get to the point now that college athletes can get paid with the name, image, and likeness, where, a scholarship is just basically you paying for a kid to go to school so he doesn't have to pay the thousands of dollars to play for your university. Now, you could basically, in theory, get a kid over, and that kid could just, now especially with this new Twitter deal where athletes are going to get paid for their tweets, with Open Doors, I believe, you could just pay a kid through a sponsorship deal, and that cover the cost of a scholarship, and that kid in theory could just be a walk-on. Now, I might be, just spitballing here, but there's so much that's going to change. And the reason why this comment from CB is so interesting is because no matter whether or not we like it, there's going to be some illegal contact with recruits from coaches from other teams to see if they can immediately play that next season. It's no longer the day of, Cam Newton having to play JUCO and Zach Mettenberger having to play JUCO and then coming back to the Division I level. You could just go from place to place. And I honestly think player mobility is actually a really good thing. Now, of course, there are some kids that right when they hit a lick of adversity, they're going to transfer or whatnot. So be it. That's, would it do them some good just to stay where they are? Probably so. But still, overall, this was bound to happen, and it's going to happen. So all of this is going to change, and you do have to rethink everything as far as all the different data and challenges you're going to face as far as recruiting and roster management and whatnot. And LSU has been, pretty out in front of all this, hiring all the people that they've hired, such as Austin Thomas, Mason Smith, John Randall Belton, and so on and so on. We've seen all these staffers get hired, and to let you know how hard this is going to be moving forward and how competitive it's going to be moving forward. LSU's been paying all this buyout money for fired coaches, and they still invested more money in a pandemic year with lost revenue into this department. So that lets you know how complex this is going to be. And this is just me from the outside looking in. Imagine what it's like at LSU, knowing how valuable your time and resources are going to be spent over the next couple of seasons, because guess what? These first couple of years, no one really knows how all of this is actually even going to play out. So we're all kind of in a new state here as far as trying to figure out what recruiting is going to be like over the next couple of seasons. So be on the lookout for this, because it is going to be the wild, wild west. And I'm glad CB put it like this, because it's going to get pretty wild. And, I'm kind of excited. I like new things. I like change. But some of you don't. And I understand it totally, because the sport is changing whether or not you like it. I hope you enjoyed this video today. Once again, Sunday is our next live stream. Some of these videos are floating in your face if you want to watch them right now. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! I think we're doing takeout tonight. Some snapper. Let's go.